So Jamie, about a year ago, I saw you tweeting about a client that you'd worked with where you'd found a really successful video format, I suppose you'd call it, which in the years since you've managed to repeat and you've seen continuous success with that particular concept. And for me, coming in as a non-YouTube strategist, this is something that I've always been quite interested in. It's something that I don't have much experience with. And so I basically wanted to talk to you about how you've approached that channel as a YouTube strategist, and where that idea came from, and just get basically a bit more of an idea of what you do as a YouTube strategist and how you think about the process. So I don't know if you just wanted to start by telling us vaguely what this channel is, what this concept was, and how it all came about.
Yeah, so this was a YouTube channel that I started working with about 2 years ago now. They were my first ever client, and I was still working with them to this day. And it's largely due to this series that we worked on, which completely changed the trajectory of their YouTube channel, and sort of just a strategy that we've used since. And I wanted to talk about it in this video, and it's something that's not just applicable to gardening channels. This can be applicable to anyone who's listening to this in any single niche, because there's a number of reasons why this worked in terms of the packaging, but also the series and how it became repeatable. So to give some context on this channel, it's called GrowVeg. They create gardening videos. They're a British YouTube channel. And at the time, they were getting around 13,000 views on average in the first 24 hours when they released a video. And we had a call where we were talking just in general about their YouTube channel. I'd looked at the back end, kind of got some more context of what videos had done well for them in the past, which ones hadn't done well. And there was sort of like a trend that I noticed across their videos, which was that gardeners like being told exactly what to do in a specific order and when to do it. And I always say to people, like, look at what your target audience actually wants, not just their problems, but how they want it delivered. And for these gardeners, those were like the three core things. And so we were spitballing different kinds of title ideas for a video idea where we would essentially plant seeds, like what seeds to plant in the month. And the original title that they had was, "What Can I Sow Now? Veggies to Sow in Late Summer," which I think was okay, but in my opinion, it wasn't short and snappy enough. And I did think that there was a couple of things that we could do to make it stronger. So I changed this to, "You must sow these seeds in August," and for a number of different reasons. I really like the word "must" because I wanted to make people feel a bit of urgency there around, you have to do this. And then also putting it sort of some boundaries in the month by saying in August. This, I think, was very useful for creating urgency, which I think is one of the reasons why this video did so well for them. Because when you have urgency, especially with something like gardening, you have to put the seeds in the ground, right? For those who aren't gardeners, you can't just stick seeds in the ground any time of the year and they grow. There are growing seasons. And so if you're a gardener and you see a video that says you must sow these seeds in August, you're going to want to click it pretty quickly. And what we actually found as well is that as the month went on, the views just kept on going up and up and up because that window in which you could plant those seeds was getting shorter. And so, but before I go even more into that, actually, let me give the results. So as I said, they usually get 13,000 views. This video got them 40,000 in the first 24 hours. And by the end of the month, it was over 400,000, which was just huge for them. And since then, that video has continued to do really well for them. And we've created an entire series of these videos specific to different months, all of which get them hundreds of thousands of views, way more than what they were getting originally. So it's been a really successful strategy for them.
Can I just ask, actually, at that point, like, is it the kind of thing, do you find now, having worked with them for multiple years, is there another spike in that same video when the next year comes around for that same month? Or do you recreate the video again for a future year, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I think for people listening, like if you can have a video series that is specific to like a month, that's great, because what we have seen is that every single year that video explodes again. So we uploaded this in August 2022. 2023 came around and we got an additional 250,000 views, which took the video in total up to about 750K, which is huge for their channel. And, this will be the third year, this August coming up, in which we might get another spike of views like that. And for all of the other months that we've done since then, we have seen a spike in views. So it's been really positive in that sense, because it just means that they're going to get, over the course of a year, every single month, there's going to be a new influx of views. And that's just going to mean that per year, the channel is getting, an additional 2-3 million views, which might not sound like a lot to a big channel like this, but it is quite substantial. I just noticed your face
for
there
sure,
was like,
for sure.
it's not a lot.
No, it's just like, I think it's blowing my mind. I mean, the phrase genius strategy is thrown around very liberally in our space. And I think, but this is something where, a really common trend that you see is like how, do this in this year, or like, business investments that will work in 2024 or whatever. And those videos, basically, they have that kind of 1 year life cycle. And maybe then you'll get people, disingenuous is probably the wrong phrase, but they'll just like update the year on the video title. But actually, when another year has come around, that advice might now be out of date. But I think the particular nature of this like cyclical thing that you have going with gardening, and I guess maybe there's other things that you could try and use this strategy for, but it truly will be an evergreen video that just will work every single year, unless climate change completely ruins how everything works, which is possible. But more to the point, like that really is a totally genuine way to just have a piece of content that will work every single year without fail, year after year. I think that's just really cool.
Yeah, so that was like one of the cool things about this series, is that it's going to basically pay them dividends, because the video is not only evergreen, but the subject that they're making videos about is quite evergreen. Like gardening doesn't really change that much. It's kind of been the same for hundreds of years, right? And so for us to have this approach to creating a number of videos that, essentially what we wanted to do was have 12 videos, right? Like January, February, March, April, all the way through, so that we covered our basis. We could have come around again this year and made, a second video covering the exact same month. But we did think that there's a risk of cannibalizing views there. And I just don't really think it's worth it. I think for us, it was better to kind of like learn why this packaging worked for us, why this video series worked for us, and then adapt it, which is what we've done. And we can touch on that in a moment. But being able to basically have like an evergreen series of videos that are going to explode every single month is always going to be a beneficial thing.
And do you think, is there anything else about the title or the packaging that we've covered this sense of urgency, but like, is there anything else about that format that you think was working really well?
Yeah, so urgency, as I was touching on before, I think is quite good. And what we actually did was, when it got towards the end of August and we saw like the views peak and then essentially just drop off and die, for that entire year, what we started to do was actually go back and change that packaging again to late summer. So you must sow these seeds in late summer. Just to kind of like squeeze out an extra 50,000 views from the video. And then once that really was dead and we kind of got past the summer, we would then change that back to August to prime it. In other words, sow the seed for next video's video.
That's so good.
So yeah, that was sort of the approach with the urgency. But I think that another part of this, why this packaging worked quite well, was the curiosity aspect. And as we know, like curiosity is one of the big emotional drivers on YouTube. We see this time and time again. I think Ryan Trahan does this really well. I have a video on my YouTube channel just talking about curiosity and Ryan Trahan, because I think he does a really good job of it. And so the original sort of idea that we had was to have someone holding a seed or holding a seed packet. And I thought, well, the problem with that was that by having, you must sow these seeds in August, cabbage seeds, tomato seeds, like whatever, like you kind of give the game away in the title. And by holding up, the packets in the thumbnail, you're going to be able to see it without even clicking, which I don't think that would have damaged the views too much, but it certainly would have made some people go, oh, I kind of know what that is already. I'm not going to watch. So what I suggested was we like just completely strip away any kind of detail there. And I made a mock-up, which we can show on screen right now, which is where, there was this package that had like a question mark on it. There was another one where Ben, which is the host of the channel, was holding the seeds. And as you can see by these mock-ups, like they're not very good. They're kind of just, me making something in Photoshop just to communicate that idea across to the team, to give them something to work with. And what we settled on was like this fantastic photo, which is like a really high quality close up of a seed in between someone's finger and thumb. And we had the thumbnail text, "You must sow these seeds in August," with an arrow pointing to that seed. We removed any kind of details from the title, simply because if you looked at that and you have that urgency to think, I need to click this video to plant these seeds by the end of the month, I don't know what seeds they are because they've given no details, so I have to click to find out. Like, that was really what we were just trying to get there, was pairing urgency and curiosity. And it worked very well for us, and it worked multiple times that we made this video. Every single time we made it, the views just kept on increasing. And we refined like this thumbnail in so many different variations. And it's just been really, really positive for the channel.
For sure. Yeah, I'm curious actually. So then that thumbnail that you talk about, like I like that original thumbnail that you've done. And actually I know you said you've got variations of it now after all these months, but that tiny little seed in between a pair of fingers, kind of it harked back to another, like a Ryan Trahan thumbnail where he's got a little phone in between his fingers. And I wonder, do you ever, are you looking, because obviously that's like totally different niches, but I feel like it's drawing on, there's kind of these universal things that will maybe make people curious. And I suppose I'm curious, in terms of your packaging for these videos or otherwise, how frequently are you looking cross niche? How frequently should people be looking cross niche? Or do you think a lot of the time it's more others in your niche or your own previous videos that have performed well and then trying to kind of replicate that success? Or how wide do you look, I guess?
Yeah, so there's really like 3 stages that I go through when I'm thinking about packaging. The first is your own channel or the client's channel in this case, because these are the videos that have performed for you, that resonate with your audience, that your subscribers like. There are things that you can learn from there, and you have a lot of data on the back end that you just don't get from looking at other people's YouTube channels. So that's always like the first step for me, is like uncovering what worked and what didn't work, and then trying to like read in between the lines and then actually testing that and not just making an assumption. But that's usually where I start off. Then I will look at things like in a niche, what kind of videos did well, looking at these outliers, looking at what aspects of a thumbnail, not just the composition or the words, but like, was it the color? Was it the thing that they were holding a weird object? Was it that, they, like I said, also what was not shown, so a lot of people look at what's in the thumbnail. It's like what wasn't shown in the thumbnail sometimes, so in that case, it was don't show what the specific seeds are. And then that third level is to look across YouTube, across different niches. And I think this is like the most underrated one. Like, a lot of people know to look at their own videos. They know to look at people in their own niche, which is then when you start to kind of copy. But I think that looking at other niches is like really where you can find the good stuff, because getting people to click is all about human psychology. It's the strategy component of what makes people click. And that's it on a human level. And so it doesn't really matter too much, if it's a gardening channel or not, as to why it works. And, the example that you used with Ryan Trahan's video, I can't remember if that was something that was a factor. I mean, this is like 2 years ago now, but I do remember that video was an inspiration for another video I worked on, which was the video of Ali, his productive skincare routine. I think it's got like 8 million views now, which is just like crazy high for him. One of his biggest videos. And maybe we can make a whole video on how I came up with that packaging. But it was largely based on that Ryan Trahan video of like being really close of his eyes. And then I also looked at other people in the skincare niche, and I noticed that people liked having acne, like quite extreme acne on their face. And so with the thumbnail of Ali, I got really close in on the eyes, and then just like made one side of his face look really like grungy, with acne and scars and spots. And then the other side was like very, very clean, just to help with that contrast and lead into people's expectations of before and after. And that paired very well with Ali's title, my evidence-based skincare routine. It's like, you're sold on like, I know that this, especially when Ali and like his intentions with that type of video, and him being a doctor as well. Like, there's a lot of things that made that video work. And so, kind of gone a bit off course there, but like that is how I kind of approach titles and thumbnails. I'm just like looking across the board at YouTube, picking what works, testing things, and then tweaking if something didn't, resonate with the audience.
That's cool. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. So in terms of this urgency, how can the viewers apply this to their own channels?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is like, just look at your videos that are coming up. Can you actually apply urgency there in the title, the thumbnail, or even within the content itself? If you can, that's great. Try it out, see what happens. I found that every single time that I've included urgency inside of a video's packaging, it does perform quite well. I think that there is a caveat there though, that I really do want to emphasize, is that if you want to get more views over time, don't damage your reputation with this. Like, you see people lean on urgency quite a lot of times and they go a bit too far. It's a little bit too extreme. In GrowVeg's example, when we say you must plant these seeds in August, if you plant it in September, October, or even later than that, the seeds aren't going to grow as well as they could. And so there is a legitimate claim there in terms of like, you should really plant these seeds in August. Don't go out of your way to claim things that are exaggerated. I feel like Graham Stephan is someone who did a very good job of using urgency by saying, you must invest here, there's going to be this crash, the housing market's going to crash. Like, he's very good at doing that. But what I would say is, I think he gets a fraction of the views he used to get because he damaged his reputation, where him saying these things all of the time, you don't believe it as much, and so then you're less likely to click on it. Urgency can work for a very long time in the fact that you won't have a lot of returning viewers, but you will have a lot of new viewers. So people will still be getting, whipped up into a frenzy and clicking on those videos, but you're not really having a core audience that love you and are sticking around. And that's a problem. So only really use urgency if it's applicable to you. Don't shoehorn it in and damage your brand. Because, as a side point, I think many people who are trying to increase their click-through rate, which is another conversation for a different time. But people clicking again on your videos is not always about your title and thumbnail. It's about like the previous experience that they've had with you. If you've had a really good run of videos recently where every video you're putting out is really, really, resonating with your audience, they're finding a lot of value in it. Even if you, uploaded that 7th video in a row, but it was terrible packaging, you might still get loads of people clicking because they know it's you and you provided value for the previous 6. So, keep that in mind as well when it comes to packaging your videos, and only use urgency when you're confident that it's actually going to resonate and it isn't clickbait.
Let's say somebody takes on board what we've spoken about so far. They hit on a really, really good idea and they think, cool, this is my thing. This is what I'm going to be able to repeat. All good. When you were at that point with GrowVeg and you had this really successful video and you realized it was something repeatable, where did you go from there? What lessons did you take from that? And how did you apply that to the rest of the channel going forward?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things here, really. The main thing here really for everyone is like, you need to experiment, learn what works, and then find a way to make it repeatable, not just from a concept perspective, but also through packaging. You're essentially just trying to make it easier for the viewer to say yes. If you can do that, and you can do that consistently, you will grow the YouTube channel, right? Because if you're learning what works and you're making like iterations on that packaging and improving it over time, and you're having like a variety of content that your viewers like but is slightly tweaked in one way or another, you're going to get more views, you're going to grow. And because it's, you're optimizing for returning viewers essentially, you will grow the YouTube channel. So with this series, as I mentioned at the beginning of this call, or podcast, I should say, the things that really worked for this YouTube channel was the idea that the gardeners wanted to know when to do things, how to do it, at what specific time of the year. And so when we started to analyze all of the content on the channel and realize that these were the things that were driving force essentially for getting people to click, I was like, okay, let's go to London. I mean, you don't have to go to London, but we went to London and we hang out for a full day and we generated like 100 different video ideas in different series that we could experiment with to find the spin-offs that would essentially could be like a replacement. So GrowVeg create 4 videos per month, and it's very exhausting to kind of come up with original ideas 4 times a month that always perform, and also grow the YouTube channel that break out. And so my personal thought process on this is you should be experimenting to find one video that is repeatable, that can essentially take a slot in those 1 of 4. And that then just means you need to be able to create 3 original videos per month, because now you have one that's already guaranteed. You know what that slot's going to be in a few weeks. The more often you do that, the quicker and easier it is to make a high quality video in that series. And so for GrowVeg, Sow These Seeds was that series. That then meant that every month, that's a series that's just like, we're going to keep improving on, right? We're going to keep looking at the titles and the thumbnails. We're going to be looking at the hooks and the rest of the videos and understanding what worked, what didn't, how can we improve it for next month. That means that we have a flywheel essentially on improving that concept. For the other 3 videos, it's essentially, how can we find another repeatable series that gets us more views than what we typically get? And then how can we optimize that packaging to make that repeatable? So with Sow These Seeds, it's all about the seeds that go in the ground. And we saw, well, the quickest and easiest thing to do is to do a very similar packaging, which was around jobs. It was do these jobs in August, do these jobs in September, October. And that also performed for the YouTube channel for the exact same reasons, in that there was urgency and there was curiosity. Now, I don't think jobs, we went through A/B testing jobs, tasks, things to do, all of these different ways, because we thought jobs and tasks was a bit, it felt like a lot of work, right? It's not as fun as planting seeds. It felt like people might procrastinate on clicking it. So we went through like a different iterations there of A/B testing to find what worked. But largely we found that video started to outperform other video concepts on the YouTube channel. And then that became 2 of 4. And so then we only had to think about 2. And what we found actually is, like, over time, because we've done a lot of these series now over the past year, in both of these series, they're starting to be less effective. And so now what we're trying to do is replace these series with something new, especially because when something works, a lot of the competitors in the gardening niche copy the videos that work, which is understandable. That's always going to happen. And so then your viewers are then having multiple options, which waters, the amount of options that they have. And so your views go down. And so for us, we tried another series, which was around DIY. So we did this DIY series where you could build things around sort of saving money, because we thought that would work. It didn't really resonate with the gardeners. These are people that prefer to be in the garden and learn about the process of growing things and having better fertilizer and, all of these kind of things. Talking about building something just didn't really resonate with an older demographic that we have on that channel. So that was
I'm
killed.
curious, sorry to interrupt, Jamie, just at that point, like, this has just raised an interesting question for me in terms of figuring out what resonates and what doesn't. Obviously views are a really good indicator of that, and if you try something over and over and it's not getting the views, then that's a really clear indicator. But I mean, you said earlier in the conversation that you knew that these gardeners would respond to being told exactly what to do, and they want specific times to do it, etc., etc. How is it that you figure that out? Is that something that GrowVeg had kind of assimilated in their heads over time, or do you have an audience avatar for the channel, or like, how is it that you figure that stuff out, or do you just wait, see what the views do, and kind of narrow it down?
Yeah, so when you go back and you look, I mean, it largely depends on how many videos you have on your channel. Like, these guys have over 500 videos, so there's like a lot of data to work with. They've been making videos for like 10 years, if not longer. So they had a lot of data for me to work with. But for smaller channels or newer channels, the thing is really to look at which of those videos performed well for you and try to find common threads. Sometimes it's the language, sometimes it's what's shown, sometimes it's the specific topic. If you can identify what that is, then, that's great. But a lot of the times it's kind of just about having a hunch and then testing it. Like, a lot of people don't like it when I say it, but you have to experiment and actually test it.
I'm really sorry. This is a genuine interruption to the podcast. A pigeon just flew into my window at top speed.
I thought you were just shocked at what I said. I was like, really? Was it that
what an insight?
Is he okay? Is the pigeon alive?
I don't know if anyone can sort of bring to mind the scene from Chamber of Secrets. Where it's the scene where like the owl like flies at the Weasley's house and just sort of hits the window and just flops off. That's what just
Oh,
happened.
dude, I'm gonna die.
Centimeters from my face.
That was so funny. I want to rewatch that because you just like grabbed your mouth in shock. Oh, man, that's hilarious.
Sorry, everyone. Let's carry on.
I didn't even remember where I was up to. What was I talking about?
I don't know what we're talking about.
It's a hard reset.
It was a bloody hard reset. What was that? I think we could probably leave some of that in, maybe not all of it.
I think we leave the whole thing. I think everyone just loved the fact that a pigeon flew into the window. I think what I was talking about was, yes, how to identify what people actually want. So yeah, I was saying a lot of people don't like it when I tell them that you have to experiment. Like you cannot just assume things and just start implementing it and never measuring it. You know, you have to look at how many viewers did we get in total, specifically the returning viewers, which is a very important metric that a lot of people don't look at. And then you also have like the little more slightly fluffy more things like how many likes did we get? How many comments did we get? You know, how many subscribers did we get? Ensuring that they're the right types of people. You know, these are the things that you have to kind of measure, and you have to do it over an extended period of time to really kind of just confirm those assumptions. And obviously you can use a lot of tools out there to A/B test this stuff. That I think is like the easiest way to really like see the data rather than you just eyeballing things in YouTube analytics and hoping that you understand it, because there's a lot of things at play. But being able to just like identify those things and try to make videos in that nature. And if you start to see things that work, you just learn more about your audience. You know, sure, it's fine to go ahead and say, here's my audience avatar. You know, it's a man who's 70 and he, you know, lives in the UK and he's a gardener and he watches, you know, Gardening World or BBC, like all of the stuff. But like that stuff doesn't really help you too much. It's about finding like their behavior. And that's only the stuff that you can really get, you know, into the weeds of once you have actual numbers to back this stuff up.
So you mentioned that the DIY series I did didn't work. How did you bounce back from that, Jamie? Were there any other series that you've tried since that have become part of the regular roster?
Yeah. So like I said, sow these seeds, do these jobs. These were a staple for us. DIY didn't work, and then we eventually moved on to like ginger growing masterclass, perfect ginger every time. This was a video that we put out that has now got over 1 million views. It did very well for us. I brought this tweet out actually, like I think back in October. I was like, the words that I'm seeing in terms of like titles that are working really well at the moment, it's like blueprints, framework, masterclass. There was another one as well. It's basically just like all of these words where it's like, you're going to tell me exactly what to do and how to do it well, right? Again, building on top of the fact that these gardeners like being told what to do and how to do it, masterclass really implied that. And so when we then paired that with perfect ginger every time, it feels like this is a masterclass. This is someone who knows what they're doing. It's going to work. We had another one that was, let me find it on their channel right now. We had seed starting masterclass, my blueprint for success every time. So we combined masterclass and blueprint. This has 600,000 views in 4 months, which is very, very good for the YouTube channel. And so these titles work very well for us. The thumbnail had this "Get It Right" with a huge green tick. This again was just this.
Yes, I saw that on the channel, man. It's everywhere, but it looks so good.
It's because it works, right? So it's one of those things like just do it until it doesn't work anymore. But as long as you have this experiment sort of mindset when it comes to the content, you're always looking for the next series that's going to do well. Like trying to come up with original ideas all the time is hard work. Having these buckets or formats or concepts, however you sort of want to define it, that you lean into is really, really helpful. And so with this ginger growing masterclass, it has an 8.6 multiplier on it. So it has 1.2 million views in 7 months, which is incredibly high for the channel. We also had like these garden tour videos where we would essentially go and speak with other YouTubers who have really interesting gardens, and we speak to them. And not just YouTubers, there was like another one that we found who was just like a chef, Michelin star chef. We made a video with him. It does very well. And there's one where, let me find what it's called. This video was called My ultra low maintenance garden, the full tour. That's got 500k views. And the thumbnail text is like a drone shot looking down on this great looking garden with one person stood in there, which secret is not real. I added it. It's AI, which on Photoshop is just nuts. There's like a fake person in there.
No way.
Yeah, I just typed in like man stood in garden and he just popped this guy who looks so real into the thumbnail. If you like will zoom in, you'll see the guy is a giant. Like he doesn't match the scale at all. But from a small thumbnail perspective, it fits. But that with my veg garden in huge text worked really well for us. And that then led to see the chef's amazing garden, Gaz Oakley's countryside pot with this amazing photo. And that was supporting 250k views. So all we're doing is experimenting, finding the series that work, sort of spending some time thinking about why it worked, then adding that to the next video's like concept and packaging, rinse and repeat until we start to see that not work anymore. And then we move on to that next series, which we're trying to find all of the time. Like that's pretty much it. Like if most people did that after listening to this conversation, they're going to see growth on their YouTube channel. And it as long as you look at things through experimentation series and finding repeatable series, like YouTube becomes very fun. It becomes much easier to test things rather than feeling like you're on this hamster wheel of creating original content every single time.
That's super, super useful. I think even as you're saying it now, like this is all stuff that I'm kind of internalizing as I start to get back into my own YouTube stuff. So yeah, this has been super, super helpful for me as well as hopefully the listeners and the viewers as well. If we want to kind of learn more about this stuff and your strategy, where can we go, Jamie? Please tell me.
Well, you can go to the YouTube channel, George, my own personal YouTube channel. I actually have an entire video, which you can probably click right here, which is where I break down this GrowVeg YouTube strategy a little bit more. And I also have a newsletter, which I'll put in the description below, where I talk about how we came up with more repeatable ideas. And it's a little bit more in depth than what we went into this podcast episode. So thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you all in the next one.